A lot better than I do. Sorry, guys.
All right, guys. Today is all about mechanical rides. So if you're not on the Zoom, I'm hoping you rewatch this. We're going to talk about rock walls, trains. We got two different operators, got gas and electric. We got meltdown, other mechanical rides. So it's all about that. It's all about what did we pay new, what do we pay used, however we bought it. It's going to be about how much money that product, generates for us in a gross amount. These are going to be ballpark prices. But anyway, we're going to start this off with John Rowland. John is from my area. We actually bought his business, Jumpin' Jays, out. He had it, oh man, Lord, he'll be able to tell you, but for years and years and years, he bought it from somebody else and really did a great job of growing it. He was almost number one. He was number one, then, he might have got taken out by somebody else that looks a lot like me, but then he would kind of take that back, that number one spot. But anyway, he's a good guy. He's a veteran and I'll let him kind of introduce himself. But he's going to start off because he is picking up his kids and taking them home. So he's going to start off and talking about his trackless train.
All right, so guys, hey, I appreciate that, Jamie. So my name is John. I own a company called Jumpin' Jays. Essentially, it was started by two sisters that were very popular in the community. They're very well known. And I went out on a limb, bought a rock wall, and then it just kind of got crazy. And I bought this inflatable business around 2013, 2014, kicked it off and was in the business until I sold out to Jamie. Or I think it was 2021, 2022, somewhere around that time. And I got into, so getting out of the inflatable business, I bought a Bellatory trackless train. I bought this train thinking that I would book everything under the sun, but what I found out later, nothing's changed. Everybody wants something for nothing. So I dropped about 40, when it was all said and done with a train and trailer, I dropped about 55,000 on this equipment, and then found that it was extremely hard to rent because the market rental on this train in most larger cities was about 2K. And I'm down in South Georgia where everybody is not made of money, I guess. And the best I could get for it was 750. So I got this train. It's electric. Probably annually, I think last year I did around 35,000 with the train, which is not bad for just having a train. Uh, as far as maintenance goes, it doesn't require a lot of maintenance other than just cleaning it, but there are aggravations, kind of like one I was just talking with Jamie and Tony about. So if you weren't online, I've got a control board issue and I'm having difficulty getting a new one from the manufacturer, almost to the point that I'm thinking about just going to somebody local and just redoing the whole thing with somebody who deals with electronics, sound systems, and things like that. But all in all, that's it. If you have any questions, I guess in reference to, maybe you're thinking about getting a train where
Hey,
I would
John,
get a
talk to
train
us
from.
about the difficulties because I know you have to turn down some business because you won't drive yours, of course, on grass.
Oh
Yours.
yeah, and that's great. And hey guys, and I had a little card in front of me, but I had to pick my kids up. They got dentist appointments, so it just happened to be the same time we were doing this. So my train is electric, which I may have previously mentioned, and we do not operate on grass. We only operate on concrete or asphalt. Because it's electric, we can't operate indoors. So some of the events that I do can be in gymnasiums. We've operated inside churches. The great thing about the Bellatory train is that it spins literally on a dime. Wherever that engine goes, and when I pull 4 cars, that caboose is going to go in the same spot. So it's not like something you got to swing wide to make a turn or anything like that. But because of the train being electric and because of the type of train it is, it's a very, very expensive train. We just decided, we're only going to operate on concrete or asphalt. And that does limit us from times. But honestly, with the type of train that we have and the price that we're renting a train at, most of the time it's going to be your higher end clients, and they're going to have asphalt, concrete, long driveways. Churches have parking lots,
Hey, John, let me ask you
etc.
this. Because you owned the train while you owned the bounce houses before we bought you out.
Yes.
Ballpark figure, how much extra revenue, not, I know you told us what the train was, but how much extra revenue from bounce house rentals for like churches, schools, and all that do you think that brought into your business?
Um, I think when I had the bounce houses, it brought in more just because it was always an additional add-on. So whereas I did about 30 last year, if I still owned bounce houses and was primarily selling a bounce house service, I think I might could get the train on more. So it probably would have brought on about 10 grand more.
Okay.
And that doesn't mean that if you get a train, guys or gals, that you can't do better than that. I'm retired military as well, and I've got 4 kids. So a lot of times I'm trying to schedule around what they're doing, just because, obviously as a dad, you don't want to miss out on everything just because you're wanting to do a train event.
I want to throw this
So,
out too. Also, is of course me and John, we know each other well. We were always competitors, but it was always very cordial. If he needed a blower, if I needed a blower, and all that, we just worked well together. So we always knew there was enough of the pie to go around. So with that said, if you don't have a train, do like what John does, is we put his train on my website. I don't want to be in the train rental business. I don't want to be in the dunk tank business. I don't like dunk tanks, but I know that I need them. So John has like 4 dunk tanks. And so it's a perfect match to where, he doesn't do bounce houses. So we're not conflicting with that, but he is adding, people will all the time call up and they'll want a dunk tank along with a bounce house.
yeah, and I'll tell you, if you don't have dunk tanks, that's another good option. Look, it's not, I promise you, it's not going to be your big money maker, but it is a great add-on. And a lot of times, if you're super busy, your dunk tank, a lot of times you can deliver a day ahead of time. It takes about 5 minutes to set it up, 5 minutes to break down, and you drive away. And I've been getting $250 a pop on rentals. So,
Yep. Yep.
it's
So anyway, thank you, John. If you got to go, we completely understand. Or if we lose you because you're out in the country, I want to hit on the rock wall real quick, just like what John did. So we actually
Can I get two questions? Can I get 2 questions in with John real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, good.
Number one, what's the top 3 trackless train manufacturers that you would throw out there based on your experience and what your knowledge is?
The number one is a Watman. The number one train is going to be a Watman, hands down. They're out of Canada. A Watman, yes, sir. They're out of Canada. I will tell you that, which was so funny. Because of this issue I'm having getting parts, I started exploring, getting a Watman. I've looked at it several times, but pricing changes along with, just like gasoline goes up and down. So I got a price list this morning, and my same exact train, which I paid roughly between 47, 49,000 without the trailer. That was just the train. A Waltman's going to run you about 69.
And then the next question was, what are the different power options? So you mentioned electric. Is it propane,
now
gasoline?
Bellatori, which is the train I have, they build an electric train. They build a diesel train, which is a Kubota. Kubota mower tractor, and they also offer a gas engine as well. Which
if you bought a new one today, would you change your power source, or would you stick with what you got electric?
Man, that's a great question, and I've beat myself up about that so many times. But honestly, I like the electric just because it gives me, if it's raining outside and they have a facility, we can ride in. And if they say, well, it's too big because of the cars, no problem. I can drop 2 cars off, pull the train in with just pulling 2 cars.
Yeah.
Now, if you're talking about a top 3 train, I would go Watman. I would probably go Bellatori, which I have as number 2. and I've heard a lot of great things about roundhouse trains, and they're
Thank
fairly
y'all very much. Thank
they're
you.
fairly inexpensive. I think they're about 23 to 24,000.
Okay, thank you.
Great question, Jimmy. Hey, yeah. Matter of fact, does anybody else have any questions for John? If not, all right. If you do, just jump in. But I'm going to move on to the rock wall. Sorry, I cracked myself up. I got all these dad jokes. So anyway, so the rock wall we got when we bought John out, and it came with, I don't know, when we bought him out, it was like 40 inflatables, trucks, trailers, and the rock wall, all for $15,000. So it was, a great buy. So I'm kidding about that, but that's another video for another day. But anyway, the rock wall came with it. So John had already been establishing this rock wall in the South Georgia market. So please understand that the numbers that I'm going to give you, we've had it in the area for, I don't know, John, what is it? 10 years? Did 2014?
Yeah, can you hear me? I was on mute. Can you hear me? Yeah. I bought the rock wall in 2014.
Okay,
So
it's been in this area for over 10 years. And
massive amounts of advertising.
Yeah. So John has already established that market for us when we bought him out 2.5 years ago. I believe my closest rock wall is about 2 hours north of me. I just heard of somebody that I met at a festival this past Saturday. He's got a rock wall 2 hours north of me. Besides that, it's 3 hours north in Atlanta. So people will pay for, if I'm booked, they will rent a rock wall out of Atlanta, and they will come all the way down to my area. So anyway, that's something to be known and all that. But I looked up the numbers, and the average for the past almost 3 years that we've had it, that is trackable and from pay-to-play events, is right about $35,000 a year. Now, one of these brand new is right around 45 plus. So I was talking to Tony the other day, and it was like, yeah, I mean, I see some come decent used ones for $10,000 to $15,000. Mine's a 4-person, and so I really, on those used Facebook groups, I'll see decent looking ones that are less than 10 years old, that are that $10,000 to $15,000 range. This one being over 10 years old is still in great condition. It cost me $2,000 a year to have it inspected. Georgia doesn't actually like put stickers on their stuff and like certification, all that. But of course, this is something that you got to do if you're going to have a ride like this. So it's $2,000. They come in, it takes them a few hours. They change out all the cables, and then they try to sell you on all kinds of other stuff. But they called me last minute. It drives me crazy. Like this past month, they were like, hey, this is on a Thursday. Like, hey, we're going to be in your area tomorrow morning. Can we come service the Rockwall? I'm just like, no, I'm taking it out to an event. You know what I mean? So, but anyway, that's one of the headaches, but that's more on their part. It is what it is. So anyway, I would estimate added revenue. So when we're bringing the Rockwall out, the churches and corporate events that are adding more bounce houses, sometimes the train, I would guess probably around the same amount of what John said, $10,000 to $15,000 extra, what this brings in to the business for other rentals. This is something that I haven't had an issue with the Rockwall with, but I have, we got 85 plus units. We got interactive games. We've got a lot of stuff that other bounce house companies don't have. And so what I'm finding is some people will call in and say, I want to rent these couple units from you. And then we got some other competitors in here that are just dirt cheap. And they'll say, we're going to rent these other stuff from them. Now, if I hear about it, I'm going to put my foot down, because I don't want to set up next to a company that is old and dirty units, not insured, and then it's going to be a reflection on my business. I don't know how their customer service is. I know ours is top notch. So anyway, this is not directly Rockwall related, but I will tell you this: when you start to get interactive units, train, mechanicals, people might use you for this stuff, and they might use somebody else. So however you want to word this, the problem is going to be, you got to handle this, in my opinion, with kids gloves. Is if you go out to show up at an event, somebody else is setting up. So I had a camp about a year ago say, hey, we're not going to use you for the water slides. They rented like 5 water slides. It was like a $2,000 event. And they were like, we found somebody else that'll donate, but we still want your interactive games. And I put my foot down. I was like, we're not going to set up along another company. This other company was donating all this free stuff to churches, and I'm getting on my soapbox here a little bit, but it's only going to be another minute. So, but I had to put my foot down, and she ended up saying, well, we're actually using them the day before. They won't be here when you're here. I agreed to do it. It is what it is. I lost this business, and this other guy donated his time. Quick recap to that story too is this guy is out of business right now, probably because he burned himself out. So anyway, that's going to be one of the things you run into with these high ticket things, in my opinion, is going to be that you're going to have maybe bring out this mechanical bull, this rock wall, and you might be setting up next to a bounce house company. So you need to address this, in a most professional way possible beforehand, in my opinion. So anyway, that's pretty much it on the rock wall. Tony owns mechanical, gas powertrain, and some other mechanical rides. So Tony, unless anybody else has got some questions about the rock wall, we're going to let you have the floor, man.
Gotcha. Yeah, I've been in business for about 21 years. I started with trackless trains probably 12 years ago, probably. Started out with a Royal gas powertrain, kept it. I've kind of had 2 or 3 different Royal trains throughout the time and so forth. Sold some, bought some, a little better condition, so forth. This past year, I bought an electric train and so forth. And because I had kind of like the same situation with your market with the Rockwall, I had kind of really built up my market, with the trackless trains and so forth. And so a lot of my trains that I kind of pretty much, I do a lot of Christmas events with them, with Polar Express, schools, things like that. We did roughly almost, well, with our gas powered and I got I'm sorry, let me go back a little bit. I got our electric train about March timeframe. And so with the gas and the electric, we did over $30,000 in train rentals.
What area you're from, Tony? Let's remind
I'm in North Alabama. I'm kind of in between Birmingham and Huntsville. Huntsville is kind of my target market. But I'm actually in a little small, about a 25,000, person, little city, kind of in between and so forth. So, we did over 20,000 in our first year with our trackless train, with our electric, and then, around, a little over 10,000 with our gas powered. And then, you're also talking about dunk tanks. When I went through and looked at the end of the year, dunk tanks were actually my number 2 money maker, as far as what we have 2 dunk tanks, and I rent them out I started about $200, and I bumped it all the way up to about $275 on a rental on those, and we did about 13 grand in just dunk tank rentals alone, with 2 dunk tanks, and so. It seems to done pretty good there. I've got a rock wall. Well, I don't have a rock wall, but a friend of mine, we kind of share one in between, kind of like what y'all do with the trackless train. We had 2 or 3 rentals with that. I'm kind of waiting to see if it's worth picking up in my market and so forth, because there's a lot of in my area, there's a lot of National Guard and things that have those. Have them, National Guard and Sheriff's Office, and they'll go set them up for free just for, and run them and things. So that kind of kicks me out of the Rockwall market quite a bit. But we also have
Tony.
Yes.
Tony, I mean to interrupt you, bro. That's how I got into Rockwall business. I was a recruiter for the Georgia Army National Guard.
Yeah.
And I was doing a party. I was doing a Rockwall event, and a lady asked me if I did birthday parties.
Yeah.
That's how I got in it, and then I started looking at rock walls, and ended up buying my own. But that's funny you mentioned that, man. But that's how I got in this business.
Yeah, there's numerous. Like I said, there's 2 or 3 different National Guards, and there's actually a sheriff's office around our area that has a rock wall, and I've showed up with inflatables, and they're set up there with their rock wall. So it's kind of hard to compete against that as far as like renting and so forth. But when you're doing bigger events like with like I did a city event on a with had a bunch of mechanical rides and stuff. I was able to work that in and so forth. So um, um, and then we've got a mechanical bull. Um, it's it did a little over $10,000 in our area. There's quite a few bulls in the area, so that wasn't too bad, I don't guess. I mean, some people can make more. Um, I'm trying to get with my business to separate everything to where we can kind of advertise more like maybe a separate website that's just got our mechanicals and stuff to kind of, because a lot of that stuff sometimes just gets kind of lost in your I feel like in your website, so to speak. So um, yeah. Um, Trying to think of anything else. We've got a Ferris wheel. Last year we actually had a Ferris wheel and a pirate ship. The pirate ship was extremely popular. The only problem that I had with that is I bought it used from somebody in South Florida, and I never could get it to really run effectively. So I ended up selling it and looking for another one. But the pirate ship was probably I had more requests for pirate ship than anything. I had a lot of times I had to
like
yes, yes, and so I'd love to get one of the ADM Pirates Revenge, but they like I had numerous schools requesting it and so forth, and to actually the last time it went out, I kept having problems with the motor. The motor would end up burning up, and so I don't know if it was the type of train or the type of ship that it was. Plus, when I got it from down in Florida, it was down around Fort Lauderdale, and it had been setting for a little bit, and all that salt water had rested up. It had like a metal body, and it had a lot of rust in it and so forth. So we got
Yeah,
that all patched.
I looked at one at IAPA with ADM, and I think he priced it. It was about 60 grand for a new one or
Yeah,
something like that. So they were
you can.
pricey as well.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, they're about 65. You can find them used from anywhere from around 18 to 30, pretty often. But it's a popular ride. So a lot of people are.
how far do you travel with that kind of stuff, Tony?
So far, I've been basically just traveling probably a couple miles north or a couple hours north, a couple hours south.
Okay.
About 2 hours, kind of round and so forth. Last year was my first year really getting into the mechanical rides as far as the Ferris wheel, the pirate ship, stuff like that. Uh, we actually bought a Euro bungee as well. And so we're, kind of the first year doing that. We're trying to just try to see how it helps grow our business. And so we were kind of looking at the market to, I have not done any pay to plays or whichever. Everything that the figures I'm giving you are basically just straight up rentals and so forth. So I hear that once you get into more of the pay to plays, I've got a friend of mine that has numerous mechanical rides, and he'll take 2 or 3 rides and make $40,000 a weekend. And so yeah, I'm hoping to eventually get into that type of a situation, so to speak.
Yeah, Nathan put in there. Can you all talk about the transporting of the trackless trains? How big is the trailer? What type of trailers?
My trailer is a 28-foot, 8-foot wide. My train is actually I bought it from a gentleman that runs the Rolls All. I bought one of his trains, Rolls All hand trucks, Thomas Carrier. He I was his I've known him for years. And so I actually helped unload his very first train that he had come in, and it was sold to somebody else. And we found out real quick, like the person showed up with just a enclosed trailer. The train was too high, was a little high and so forth. But my trailer, he's got them now. He's had them make them shorter and things to where they'll fit easily inside of a regular enclosed trailer. But mine's about just a regular 28-foot enclosed trailer and so forth. I just keep it in there at all time. I've got the what do you call it? The strap or the where you can strap it down on the bottom and so forth. The first person he sold a train to did not have the little racks or whatever on the bottom where you could strap it in. And as he was going through Atlanta traffic, he had to slam on his brakes, and it tore the whole front of his train up. So even before he got it back home. So yeah. So as soon as when I showed up, I had winches installed, all this type of stuff to where, I so far haven't had any problems with transportation with it. And he's real good with customers, like with the he imports them from overseas, but he has them built to what his specs are. He used to sell he used to make gas powered trains as well, for years, and would sell them. You could find them on eBay and so forth. He kind of got into doing more of the hand trucks and stuff, so he's not doing that anymore. But he is importing these trains and so forth, and he sells them anywhere from around, I think, 30 to 35,000 on his trains. But he's got all the manuals and so forth for them to work on them and things, and he's got all the electronics and stuff to be able to, if something goes wrong with them and so forth. So that's why I decided to go ahead and go with go with him, because I mean, in 1 year, just with the electric train, we've almost paid for it, and so forth. So by the end of this year, we should have it paid for in full. And kind of like with the other gentleman, I don't run mine on grass. It will go on grass, but I've never really done a rental on grass. I usually try to keep it to concrete, and as level as surface as possible. But if it's got a little bit of an incline or so forth, just um, it just runs your battery down more. I'm sure the other gentleman can kind of understand that as well. So, or John can.
Yeah.
I can give you a perfect example. I do an event in Gainesville, Florida, for San Jose College. They train for the zoo, and they wanted me to carry passengers from a certain point of the festival to another, to the zoo. No problem, right? So it was a 4-hour event. I've got a train that normally holds an 8-hour charge. By the 4 hours, there were some hills to climb, and by the time the 4 hours came up, I was almost dead. So that's a negative in reference to having an electric train. If there's hills involved and you're hauling a lot of folks, you will run your batteries down. But 90% of my events are 2 to 3 hour events, unless it's a festival, pay to play, and then you just kind of you manage the battery all day. I did a festival this weekend. We did 12 hours. I used half charge. You know,
That was a
so
pay. John,
yes.
if you don't mind, tell us how much you made on that, and I'll tell them how much we made on the Rockwall at the same event.
Yeah, it was roughly around $2,500. I think it might have been 2,700. But I paid the fee to be in the event, so roughly around $2,500, which to be fully transparent, was the best that we've done there in the 5 years we've done that event.
I had my guys out there, and they were doing the Rockwall event, and we ended up doing like right at 1,400, and I was disappointed because the previous year we had done 2,200, and this is all pay to play. I only do 2, maybe 3 pay to play events in my area, because the thing that you're going to get people to ask you when you have items like this is the craziest one I've ever had, but it's along this line. Is a lady called me up. She said, "I'm throwing a festival for my baby boy. He's turning 1. I want you to bring whatever you want, rock wall and 3 inflatables. You charge whatever you want to people." This is literally, and I did all I could with not to laugh with it. You know what I mean? But I'm like, these are what some people will say. And I was just like, man, and I explained, but here's what I'll tell you on this is you're going to get people that will ask you. Now, luckily I had John to contact, and I've got another guy locally that's done a lot of festivals. And so anytime I got asked about the Rockwall to come or inflatables, I would say, "Hey, what do you know about this festival?" And a lot of times they're like, "Nope, don't touch it. Don't touch it," because the city's not big enough or the festival's too new. So here's what I would suggest. And I'm going to do this, that what I do is when I get somebody that I'm not sure about a festival, I'll just tell them, say, "Listen, it's very expensive because I've got to have 2 operators on this rock wall. So we can do your pay to play event, but I'm going to need a guaranteed X amount. And let's just say for easy math, guys, that X amount is $1,000. Then it's a 6-hour event. You add up whatever base cost you need. Then you need to tell the coordinator, all right, Mr. Coordinator, if we only make $500, I need to have a contract signed that will show that you will cover the other 500. Whatever we make over this minimum, let's say 1,000, then we will give you back 10% of whatever profit we make. And I'm telling you this, I've rolled this out to 4 or 5 people along my course. And usually the response I get is like, oh, we can't do that. No, we can't do that. And so in my mind, I'm like, yeah, you want me to take all the risk with this $40,000 rock wall or $40,000 train, and you don't want to take any risk. You know what I mean? So that's going to be something to be prepared for. Don't sign up for these festivals and say,
No, and I'm gonna give y'all a heads up. Don't ever come to the Adel Daylily Festival in Georgia. So if you buy something mechanical and you got this wild hair and you're just gonna go all over different states and do festivals, that festival will draw about 6,000 people and nobody spends any money. They have a fresh new set of suckers every year. I'm telling you, I'm literally 10 minutes from the town. And they got me for a few years. And what's so funny is I can drive 15 minutes up the interstate to another small town and do $2,700. And I can go to Adel and there'll be 6,000 people. And for some reason, nobody in that town will spend money. They'll buy cigarettes, beer, and whatever else, but they will not spend $5 to let their kid ride a trackless train or do anything else.
Tony, about your area. Tell us of pay to play. When you get asked, how do you handle it?
I don't get a whole lot of requests for pay to plays, but I was talking with another gentleman that's actually kind of Michael from up in Bouncing Chickens.
Yeah.
Me and him were talking about that because he actually bought. I had 2 gas powered trains and he bought one of them from me, and so we were talking. And he was asking me about a question about a festival or whatever that's coming up in his area that wants to talk to him about it. And I told him the exact same thing that you did, that I would not go into it without a guarantee, and so forth, that you would lay down what you need to make at least, and basically the same way. And that's how I would look at a if I was doing an event, to do it more of I need to get a guarantee or something, or unless it's a festival that I really know that's been around for a while. Like I'm, about a half a mile up the road from my house, and they usually do a September like a Labor Day thing, and they call it the Sugar Fest. They have people up there with mechanical rides and so forth. I've messaged them and so forth. I don't know how much they do or how they charge or whichever for it, but I've been trying to get into that event a little bit. But the event that I did last year for a city, they just rented everything and they didn't charge anything for it to anybody. And so those are usually the events that I like to try to get. But I would definitely do it I wouldn't do it without a guarantee and so forth. What do y'all get on your trackless train per person and like the rock wall and so forth?
So
like
John,
when you do
dollars typically on riders. I charge $10 on the rock wall. Now, for instance, there was one this last Saturday festival. There was right behind the rock wall. There was whatever that little climbing tower that you climb through like the seat belts.
It's a spider jump.
The spider jump, yeah. Then you go down a slide, and then they had a legit mechanical ride also that was like a swing, and they were charging $5. But think about that spider or mountain, whatever thing that is. You can keep the kids
going. Spider Mountain, that's what it is. My bad.
It's not like the rock wall to where you got to strap somebody in and all that, and then they're going to spend 5 or 6 minutes, attempting to go up that rock wall and all that stuff. So when I saw they were charging $5, a spider crawl mountain thing didn't bother me, but when I saw the mechanical ride, I started to question. I was like, what this festival will do is they brought in this big Ferris wheel last year from Atlanta, and I was told that it was $30,000 to bring it in. But The Ferris wheel was charging $5 a ride.
Mm.
Two ticket items were from the same company from about 2 hours north of me. And I asked the guy, I met the owner, told him who I was and all that. And I did not ask him this, but I was like, how'd you find out about this? Well, they contacted me. I've got a rock wall too. And so anyway, I let my kids ride both of his rides, and it was $5. So my question for the event coordinator is that I want to call and talk about is like, were these people subsidized basically? Like, did somebody sponsor them? Because that Ferris wheel was sponsored by like the local hospital, and then they were charging $5 a ride.
Mm.
So that's the long, but also it would not surprise me, because I'm telling you this, guys, especially with that mechanical ride, this guy had 5 or 6 people out there manning these rides. He was one of them. And I'm just like, $5 a pop. Now, maybe for that Spider Mountain thing, but that mechanical ride, they're riding on that ride by the time you unload them, load them back up. Man, it was a 8 to 10 minute turnaround. Now, you could also do kind of like the train also, to where, you're going to put multiple people on there at $5. So, maybe that's the catch on it.
Yeah.
Maybe
Well, I could charge $7, and I started to, but the simplicity of the math with $5, and it's only me, and I had my son there, but he helps load and unload. But a lot of times there's people bombarding you and around you, and if they like, well, I got 7 riders, it's just easy to go $35. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's easy to say $49, and then next thing you know, they pop you off 100, and you're trying to dig $51 out of your pocket or whatever. So it's just easy to say, and then if I have my son who's 11, who's extremely smart, but if you're trying to save money on labor and you've got your kids or something helping you, it may be a little more difficult for them to count change back at $7 a person.
Yeah. And that's another catch to this, guys, is I let my employees do it. And I had my 16-year-old son out there working. This is one of the second or third Rockwall event he's ever worked with the pay to play. But I'm putting trust in my guys' hands. We could have made $2,000 and they put $600 in their pocket. It's one of those risks. You know what I mean? I'm not going to micromanage it. Now, with that said, I trust my guys. My lead driver who was out there, he's been with me for 3 years. And, I believe that they will do what's right when no one's looking. Now, I've had some other shady people that have worked for me that would not be so.
No.
You know what I mean? So, but old sweet Marilee's, when she was taking the money back in the day, I trusted her, John. So,
yeah, she was good. I didn't trust her husband though.
So.
But hey, man, it's about 3:20. I got to get these kids in this dentist office. So hey, guys, thank you so much for having me, Jamie. I really appreciate it, man. Opportunity, Tony. It's a pleasure to meet you. I didn't get the other gentleman's name. Or
Jenny.
If there's anybody else,
Jenny.
Got you, my man. But look, if you have any questions or whatever, just reach out to Jamie and ask me. I'll be more than happy to, talk with you or whatever.
John is in the Skool group, but he has not been active for 78 days. So I'm going to send.
Oh, I haven't. Oh, you have to. What's that bump? You have to bump me or whatever they call it. I don't know, man. But look, if you ever have any questions, just give me a holler. I mean, I've been doing this I've been in this business now for about 16 years, roughly. 15 years. So, I mean, I don't know everything, but I know a little bit. So, again, Jamie, thank you for having me, man. You guys have an awesome day.
Thank you, John. Hey, Tony, unless you got something, man, let's open it up to questions. And if anybody has any, we hit a bunch. Tony, have you ever done pay to play events?
Years and years and years ago I did, and got burnt. And so I learned real quick, not to, it's I usually try to shoot for that guaranteed rental and so forth, or a guaranteed amount up front, so to speak. And so like I did an event like with one of my trackless trains last year for actually it was not this past year, the year before last, where I got hired from an amphitheater was hired me from every weekend from Thanksgiving weekend to New Year's Eve weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday to run a trackless train. And, I basically charged them up front, and then they were charging people, I believe they probably lost money and so forth because there was a lot of times that their festivals we were doing. I mean, and I had a guy there and so forth, and they just weren't doing they weren't doing a whole lot of rides and so forth. So, but they tried to put a trackless train in around where they had a lot of booths and things like this and so forth, and they had figure skate or not figure skating, but like a skating rink and all this type of stuff. And so, I think all in all, they just kind of overdid themselves, and so uh, it didn't do as they didn't when they called the next year or this past year they only rented for like one of their events and so for like one of their weekends they got some inflatables and stuff but they didn't do the whole trackless train. They said no, we're kind of changing things up a little bit this year. And so there's another event that's and y'all may have heard of it. It's in Coleman, Alabama, called the Chris Kendall Mart, and that is a huge festival that starts right around Thanksgiving or like maybe right before Thanksgiving all the way through Christmas. And they do a trackless train there as well, and it's always full. But I look at their train and it's looks like it's a homemade version type train or whatever, and I'm just sitting looking at it going, and it's a gas powered. I'm like, man, if only they could see my train. I mean, it would look so much, so much better here and so forth. So I may try to reach out to them this year and, try to get hooked up with that maybe possibly because it's a big event. I mean, they brought in one of those big Ferris wheels like you were talking about, and they have all kind of booths and stuff set up and stuff. So I may have to do a pay to play if I have to get in that event, but I know that's one that they have thousands and thousands of people come in there over the month of December.
Since we've really hit on the pay to play, I want to give you guys two big tips. One of the tips is when somebody calls you up, and this is whether it's pay to play or it's not, this is whether somebody just asking you for a donation. They're going to call up and say, hey, we're having this event and we would like you to bring out 3 units and you guys can put up a sign. You guys can advertise whatever. You can hand out business cards. We get it all the time. So the way to overcome that is say, hey, thank you so much. We do allocate a budget to advertising and to donations every year. And unfortunately, we're unable to help you. But we have a strategic partner with XYZ Insurance Company. And maybe you don't have that partner, but maybe you could tell this person to reach out to them. And the way to spin it is like this, is saying like, hey, listen, there's insurance agencies and banks who want to sponsor events like yours. Now we get asked all the time, that will you donate the stuff? And we really appreciate, we're flattered, but obviously we can't work for free. So if you could set up a sponsorship, we'd be looking at about X amount of dollars to bring 3 units out to your event. And we'll even give you a 10% discount. You can do whatever you guys want with this. You guys see where I'm going with this, but get somebody to sponsor your inflatables. Now, if you want to take this to the next level, I haven't done this, but I'm telling you, if you can build relationships with an insurance company or somebody like that, a hospital, whoever has the funds to advertise like this, you can already have it set up. So when, somebody calls you and is asking you to donate this kind of stuff, you can always say, hey, let me call XYZ Insurance Company. Let me see if they'd be interested in this. And they might be. The worst thing that could happen is no. They say no. The other thing I want to hit on is there's different ways to get payment at pay-to-play events. Now, like I said, we get asked, and we do literally, I think it's only 2 a year. And they're the 2 biggest festivals. No, we do 3 a year, I'm sorry. But they're the 3 biggest festivals in my area. They're all within 45 minutes. So we have done one of the biggest ones is called the Peanut Festival. It's in Sylvester, Georgia. It's a small town, but it brings in thousands of people. One year I did it with where we were just doing a wristband, and it was play as much as you want. Yeah, I think we charged like $15 per wristband, and it was unlimited. The rock wall was $10. It was an addition to these inflatables. I think we had 6 or 7 inflatables, and we had people staff. But the next year I did it based off the idea of individual tickets. So we had like axe throw, 120-foot obstacle course, the rock wall. The rock wall was 10 tickets. It was $1 ticket. To do the axe throw, it was 1 ticket. To do the obstacle course, it was 5 tickets. And so we had to staff them anyway. And so the person staffing it would collect the tickets. And so somebody can go and buy, 25 tickets for $20. We make a little deal as we kind of scaled up. But we actually made more money doing the tickets than we did the wristbands. So it's something to think about. Now, guys, full transparency, it was year over year. So the weather was the same, but you just never know. This was post COVID, you know what I mean? So some of that could play, but there's many, many different ways. Now I'll tell you this, the wristband was a lot easier to monitor, and it was one single price and all that good stuff. But it's interesting. Always play around with it. That's one thing about being the own business owner is try different ways.
When you did the wristband, did you staff all the inflatables individually as well?
Had to. Yep. Now, when I am staffing inflatables, I hate staffing events because I got to find all the people. You know what I mean? So I got to pull from my army of people. But what I would do is, like, if we had the basketball throw and the axe throw, I would try to, like, put them right next to each other. That way one person could staff both. What got complicated was on that 120-foot obstacle course, you had the very entrance, and then at the very end, you went up a slide, and then it split apart, and on each side would come down dry slides. And so I had people that were trying to climb on the slide and jump over the slide. It was just, it was a nightmare.
Yeah.
So
We started mandating that it had to be snow fenced in for us, so that way we could keep the cost low. So yeah, 10 to 15 bucks would make sense now for a wristband, but I would cut down my staff. But yeah.
yeah.
I agree. When you staff every single event, you got to do tickets or you got to do something expensive. So
it's going to be one of the biggest parts. And I'll tell you this is we did another, it was called the Pepper Festival, and it was like 5 to 10 p.m. on a Friday. And then it was 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. Saturday. So it was like 16 hours or 18 hours of total man hours. And I had to have 2 people at that rock wall, and then I had to have staff at these inflatables. It's about Saturday at 1 o'clock. I'm like, and I pay my people well. Like, I'm paying them 15, 20 bucks an hour to be out there for South Georgia. That's good. And I'm just adding up this all up in my head. This was back in the day when I used to work these festivals with them. And I'm just like, I'm going to be lucky to make a profit. Like, screw the festival, screw their 15% back to them. You know what I mean? So the other thing, I'll say that if you do a percentage back, is let them know this will be post my expenses. I've got X number of employees at this, and whatever my profit is, because what they're going to tell you is you give us 15% off the top. So if you made $3,000, you're giving them 15%, y'all. That's, man, it's expensive. So that's why a lot of people will get burned. Like Tony was saying, they get burned for these things. So people will take advantage. So if you will have the comeback, like, hey, can we find a insurance company to sponsor this or whatever it may be, be very interesting. So anyway, does anybody have anything else? Any questions, any comments, concerns?
those people you're talking about meet at the chamber all the time.
Yeah.
So go to every chamber in your county and beyond. So,
hey, next week I'm going to talk about the creative ways that I am doing marketing when I am 12 years into this business. Not Google ads, not Facebook ads, not social media, the actual creative ways. And I'm excited about it. I'm excited about this one. So really get into the meat. Some of this stuff you guys will already know, but some of this stuff is maybe will be new to you. So anyway, I'm looking forward to that. Appreciate you guys being on here. I'm going to post the recap in the Skool group. So if y'all need anything, you let me know.